Regular season is over, and it is time to start talking playoffs. It is the LG Hockey Hotline special playoff preview edition here tonight on YouTube.com and LeagueGaming.com. Hi, everyone. TSibs with you, and as always, joined by VHigh and Moranaconda as we're going to talk everything playoffs today for the LG AHL on the PSN side. And we're going to be talking to Baris and VibezDigital in a little while. We'll get to them a little later on in the show, but let's bring in the boys right now, Moranaconda and VHigh. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing
good,
well,
Sibs.
Sibs. Thank you.
A lot
Doing
to talk
very
about
well.
today, VHigh, and plenty of speculation to be had by all of us. But certainly, maybe it's because I know more about the league and more about the players this year. But it seems like the matchups that we're going to see are going to be pretty interesting. And there are multiple teams that are, could very easily win this whole thing. The talent is out there. Maybe it's also because of the bigger sign-up and whatever it may be, but we have a bunch of good matchups to talk about. We're going to be starting in the Eastern Conference with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Playoffs are, I guess they could have been here on Sunday night, but we pushed back a week, so, a whole week to kind of pump this up and talk about it a little bit. We're going to talk about each series tonight. We're going to bring on Baris and Vibes, as you said, and we'll talk to them about their stories that they posted on the LG site, series predictions, things of that nature. So I guess I'll start with our poll question. We put up a poll question tonight, and it says, playoffs are here. Who's your favorite to win the cup? And I listed, couldn't list every team because they don't let you do 16 options, but we have the Wolfpack, Wolves, Americans, Ice Hogs, Rampage, Monsters, Crunch, Gulls, and Pirates, and other listed. Kind of went with the top finishers in each of the divisions. But so far, there's only been 3 votes. I only got it up a few minutes before the show started. I almost forgot to post it.
Yeah.
But go vote in that, and we'll see what everybody else thinks as far as their favorite to win it all. But we're going to start here with breaking down these series ourselves, and we're going to start with the Americans, the Rochester Americans, and the Albany Devils. I kind of gave some input for Baris's story and put my predictions in with him and everything, but it's kind of hard once you put it in print. I guess it kind of becomes your final prediction, but I actually, this show is going to give me a chance to explain different things because I don't necessarily think it might go the way I ended up choosing. But, I guess first off, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well. Just getting ready for the playoffs here. There's some great matchups. There's some interesting matchups, I'll say that, to say the least, with some of these teams drawing some heavy loads in this first round here. They're going to have their hands full with some of these teams that they're going up against, and it's going to be interesting to see if the teams that were hot to finish the season remain hot with this week off, and it's going to be interesting to see if some of the other teams that were kind of faltering as they entered the playoffs, see if they can get their stuff back together and get a good push going into the playoffs here. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Sibs, how about you?
Well, this is a bit of a killer of a it's a mood killer when you have a week off of no games going on, but you kind of understand it a little bit. But
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, wanting to fill time apparently. Or you could just go to the website and just watch Vibes and Baris talk about their predictions and everything else that's going on. But it's like I said, there are a bunch of teams, and I don't, honestly, it's very easy to say Rockford, but man, there's just so much talent in this league, and there are so many teams that have the ability to win this whole thing. And I'm just excited to watch some of these games and to see you know, there are going to be some obvious picks here that we're going to make, but I'm also wouldn't be surprised if the series go a lot further than we think they're going to go, or if there's going to be any upsets. I think we learned that last year. We saw several teams who we weren't even on the playoff radar, and all of a sudden they are there and they are you know in contention and making it on level after level. So it's it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how this all plays out, and how certain things have gone for some of these teams. Rockford again have had to deal with a lot of adversity lately, and they're getting good leadership by Chiz Nasty right now. He's trying his damnedest to put together some good lines in the first round and has taken the responsibility seriously. So um, it's going to be fun to see how these guys match up with lines and what their strategy is going to be. And we're going to have to keep a close eye on that to try and figure out what each team is going to do. It's not clear cut. You start your first line the first couple of games, and then whatever. There are different strategies, and it depends on who you're playing. And we're going to see what some of these guys have planned once we see the lineups come out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And before we get in, dive into this, I just wanted to say thanks to Shiz for coming on the show on Saturday night. Thought he did an excellent job in the interview, and for me it would seem maybe tougher than for most other people to make time out of his super busy schedule after what happened with the team. To come on with us and give us 20 minutes, so I did want to say thank you to him. So I guess kind of the format that we want to do here is, I think the way we're going to do this is each of us, I'll make my prediction for the series, and then I'll ask each of you for your prediction for the series, just the number, what the if it's in 4 games, 5 games, or if you want to say 4-1, 4-2, whatever, 4-0. And then we'll come back around and talk about the series as a group. I think that's probably the best way to do this. So for me, starting off with the Rochester Americans and the Albany Devils, this is the only series that I have picked to be a sweep. People might say, whoa, what are you thinking, that sort of thing, but as I'll get into in just a minute, I think Rochester is going to handle Albany in 4 games. Mike, what do you think is going to happen in this series?
Well, Rochester's a damn good team, and their goaltending has been outstanding down the stretch. So I think Albany's got one hell of a mountain to climb here, and I can't quite go for the sweep in this one. I think Albany's going to get one shot in, but other than that, I think they're going to kind of go down quietly. I have Rochester in 5 in this series.
Sibs, how about you?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with Mike on this one. I think Rochester in 5. I think, like you said, I think Albany will steal a game. They have plenty of talent, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I think Rochester in 5 is probably a good safe bet.
Yeah, I was a little bit torn. It's very hard, really, to pick any of these series to be a sweep, and which is why, I definitely don't have any other sweeps picked, even with all the powerhouses that are in this playoff this year. You figure that matchups, maybe their first line catches the other team's third line in a backup goalie or something and steals a game, or who knows, with lag issues, things like that. You never know what's really going to happen in these online video games. But with Rochester, I feel like they're the most complete team. And they have scoring, defense, and they have 2 solid goaltenders. So I feel like for Rochester, they're at the beginning of the season, they had Abdeel in San Jose, and I don't think their goaltending is quite as solidified as it was then. Now, but I don't think it's that far off. And I think that, playing against them this year, they're super tough. And I really think across their 3 lines, forwards and defense, that it's just going to be too much for the Devils. I feel like the Devils have some talent. They've got a really good first line. Strength Legacy Sr. is a really good player. They've got some defense, and they've got a goaltender themselves. Larkin 71 came over to Albany, and he could be a big factor in this series and could be the reason that they steal a game. But honestly, I don't know how things are going over there in Albany. It would seem to me that Rochester is ready to go. They seem like they're a team that's clicking. They ended the season on a 9-game winning streak, and I think they bring that up to 13 and get through this series pretty quick. Mike, how do you think this series is going to go? How do you think it plays out?
Well, like you said, I think there's some things bouncing around over in Albany, and they kind of just were there all season. They were a solid team, very solid team, but Rochester has just been dynamite all season long. Just missing out on the President's Trophy. They've got two extremely solid goaltenders over there, and Albany's first line is good. They got Dipper over there, like you said, strength and legacy, and we'll go with of the year. They're all good players, and but I just think Albany, they've got way too much talent. Their goaltending is outstanding. Their forwards put the biscuit in the basket. Their defenders defend well. I mean, they're just a complete team. Ryan has done an amazing job over there in Rochester, and they're a powerhouse. If you ask me, they are a powerhouse. They're one of my favorites to win the cup, and I just, unfortunately for Albany, I just don't see them being able to really get things going too much against Rochester. Rochester's a quick team. They bring it on a nightly basis. They cycle well. They get pucks in deep when they need to. They use behind the net. They play amazing defense, and they're backstopped by two of the best goalies in the league. So, I mean, it's going to be a tall task for anybody to knock the Americans out of the playoffs. I just, they're a fantastic team, and I just don't see Albany getting it done in the first round here. What about you, Sibs?
Well, like you said, the Rochester lineup is, it's just stacked with players. We talked about a few of them already, but Killers, Sean the Boss, Ryan, who's the GM, obviously, Sens Champ, it's Johansson 92. I mean, and then of course, guy I've been talking about all year, San Jose 01. He is just, you've got talent up and down this lineup. It's no surprise that they are where they are. San Jose has, like I said last week in our show, has just gotten better and better. He's hitting his stride at the right time. This team, it very easily can win this whole thing and has the talent to beat anybody, including Rockford. And I think Albany's got talent as well, but not nearly what Rochester has been able to amass. Larkin over there has done a nice job in Albany. He's the kind of guy who I would love to see him run a team next year, but they're outmatched in this one, and I think, as we've said all season long, you keep making trades, you keep moving guys around left and right, you're not going to get cohesion on your squad, and they're only because they're not going to have the chance to play with each other enough. And I think that's showing up. They have enough talent to get themselves in the playoffs. If they had been able to play with each other the whole season, it might be a different story in this one. But there's got to be some issues over there with how things have shaped up, and their talent alone is not going to keep them in this one. And obviously, like I said, they're going to go down to Rochester in 5.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Rochester has names like QC Chief, Sean the Boss. That defensive core for them is really good. And Flying Red 527 for them is the only person that was able. Him and his line were able to shut down J-Claws this year before he was out. Only line that was able to shut him down. League's leading scorer. Whether you want to say 6 assists makes a difference or not, J-Claws was the league's leading scorer, and Flying Red and his line with the Americans shut him down were the only ones to do so. I just think that, this team is that deep, and we're going to find out. That's why they play the games, though. That's why we saw what we saw happen last year with the Wolfpack coming into the playoffs. There were probably 3 teams that we all thought were going to, the Cup was going to come to one of these 3 teams, and it didn't. But we'll see how it goes, though I do think the Americans will be too tough of a test for the Albany Devils. And we'll see how it plays starting on Sunday night.
Well, if you go to each one of their guys, I mean, like literally, they're all like 22-2.
Yeah.
22-5. Like all of them have single-digit losses.
They're 63, 13, and 6 for the season.
Yeah, I mean the statistics would tell you, but I mean not only just the statistics. They're just, I mean, we played them several times this year, and I actually had the opportunity to play some club with San Jose over the weekend, and the guy's on point. Killer Santo, I mean, he's had a fantastic year. He's 22-2. I mean, just they're stacked, and I'm really looking forward to watching the Amerks play come playoff time.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess let's move on here. We'll move forward here and go into our next series, which is between the Syracuse Crunch and the Binghamton Senators. In just a few minutes here, we hope to have Baris join. I know he was running some playoff practice games with his Lions tonight, so he may be a couple minutes late here, but we'll go ahead and get into this series anyway. And for me, this isn't quite as easy of a series to pick. I feel like if I can find it back here real quick. I feel like the Crunch and the Senators, I feel like the Crunch have the edge. I feel like they're a better team, but Baris has a scrappy group of guys over there. I've got the Crunch winning this series in 7.
Well, this is, I thought about this one long and hard, and, I have several scribbles here, on my, let me check my papers. But I've got several scribbles here. I've gone over this one several times in my head, and, I'm picking my first upset of the playoffs here. I got Binghamton taking it to the wire and winning it in 7 games.
Sibs, how about you?
I think it's interesting to note that in the 6 games they played, Syracuse has gone 5-1 during the season. Now you have to look at whatever the matchups were in the lines, but look, they're incredibly close in the standings. Only 9 points separating them in the end, 2-3 in the Eastern North, and I think it may very well be a close series, but I would still pick Syracuse in 7, I think is pretty much where I'm landing. I think it'll be a close one, but I think Syracuse in the end probably still has a little bit too much power.
I agree. The reason I say that is I was just like Mike. I went back and forth on this series for probably 10 minutes trying to figure out what I was actually going to put down on paper and let Baris write. And, just because he was right and it made no difference to my decision on who I thought would win. But I feel like this series is going to be back and forth. You might get 2 wins by the Crunch and then 2 by the Senators to tie the series and then 1-1-1. Or you could get 1-1-1 all the way through, just win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. But I think if it comes down to a Game 7, Syracuse Crunch have Matt the Cool Cat, who I believe was the 2nd leading scorer in the league. On VHigh's Top 10 on our normal Saturday night show, I must add, shameless plug. Yeah. He had 103 points this year, if I remember correctly, and I feel like that kind of offensive firepower in a Game 7, I have to imagine he would be a Game 7 lineup for sure. I feel like that's the firepower that's going to take out the Senators, but you do have Baris has a solid defensive core over there that he's part of, and you never know what could happen. But series like this are fun because I picked the Crunch to win in 7. I really think that the Senators could just as easily win it in 5. You never know what's going to happen. This is one that's going to be really interesting to watch for sure. And just another quick note before I ask Mike his breakdown of this series. All of you who are listening that are in the playoffs, if you would please, 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 please stream your games to the site so people can access them easily. If not, at least post your Twitch link in the shout box when you guys put the stream up so people can see the link. We want to watch these games. We're going to be watching them while we're on the air next Tuesday and the Tuesdays to follow during the playoffs. But anyway, Mike, back to you here. What do you think about breakdown here?
Well, looking at these two teams, I think Syracuse does outmatch them statistically. They've got better scorers. They've got higher scoring output than Binghamton. But like you said, Binghamton's a scrappy group of guys, and my key that I'm going on in this game is that if it does come down to a game 7 between these two teams, like you said, I'm kind of leaning towards that defensive core that Baris has put together over there that he is a part of. They're going to be a huge part of that game offensively. Not only defensively, but offensively, they're going to be putting points up. They've put up points all year. They may not score many goals, but they're constantly feeding the puck to their wingers, like VibezDigital, because he'll be in that game. They're getting the puck up. They're getting it in. And, in Baris, I've played several games with him lately. He has the capability to take that thing coast to coast at any point in time in the game. And I think their back end is going to be extremely important for them to win this series. And, I think they're going to get it done. I think it's definitely going 7 games. But looking back over at the Crunch, JD and John Gotti have done a good job over there. They have several scorers, and their defensive core is good. It's just my question over there is, are they going to be able to withstand the back-end scoring that Binghamton's going to bring their way? And, I think that's going to be the difference in the series, is that Binghamton's back-end guys are going to be putting the puck in the net unexpectedly, and it's going to catch Syracuse off guard. And, in the end, it's going to be a knockdown drag-out. But like I said, I have a sneaking suspicion that Binghamton is going to pull this series out somehow, some way. How about you, Sibs?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think I think this is going to be a close one. Binghamton again has a ton of talent on their team. Guys that you mentioned before, and the job that Live by Sin and Baris and Assisted have done with putting this team together. There are some names on here. There are a lot of guys on here that I know at all of last year. And have proven to be solid players like Funky Shyster, Legit Noodles, to name the least. And they work well as a group. I don't think you get a night off necessarily playing against any line in that group. But I still have to go back to Syracuse. Balea in goal, who's been steady all year long. UPS Wyatt. Yeagle, I've played with a lot recently too, and he's just a good, solid, all-around player. And as you mentioned, Matt the Cool Cat, who has just, he's been in the forefront of a lot of discussion about, who's been hot and who's not. Forthy does a great job with his team. Obviously, we've talked to him before, and he's a good, steady leader there. I just think there's too much on Syracuse. I think, again, this is where in the playoffs, much like in the NHL, goaltending, I think if goaltending goes in hot, it's going to be hard to beat anybody. And Balea has been playing very steady, and I just I don't know how. I don't think Binghamton is going to, if he wins this thing, they're not going to win it by 5 because I just can't imagine their goaltending on the Syracuse side is going to let that many losses go within 5 games. So I think it'll go 6 or 7. And I still think Syracuse will come out on top.
Yeah, like both of you said, this is going to be one of the more tightly contested series in the first round, I believe. I think there's going to be a few of them, but this one for sure. Um, I haven't gotten a response back from Barris, so I'm not sure where we're at with him. So let's go ahead and just move on. And when he's ready, we can just bring him on. He did predictions for all the series, so it doesn't. We don't have to have him on while we're talking about his team, though I'm sure he'd like a chance to defend himself from two of the three of us. But let's move on here. Let's go to the heavily favored Hartford Wolfpack versus the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. I caught some flack for this one, but I picked the Wolfpack. I did not pick an upset, but I picked the Wolfpack in 6. I feel like Lehigh Valley is going to steal 2 games, and I will tell you why in just a few minutes. Mike, how do you think this one's going to go?
Well, this is your classic, with the way the playoff series are this year. This is your classic 1 versus 4. This is a top-notch, top-tier team versus a team that got hot and got into the playoffs. And the Phantoms have a good team over there, and I just don't think it's going to be enough. Hartford, the defending champions, coming back. They're playing great hockey. I think the Phantoms are, they're going to go down in 5. I have the Wolfpack winning this series handily in 5 games.
Sibs, what do you got?
I think if Lehigh Valley were playing quite a few other teams in this league, I could easily call this an upset or a victory for them. Because again, I think their talent is amazing, but they're playing Hartford. If they're playing Hartford or Rochester or Rockford, maybe those are the 3 teams. I might even call, those are the only teams I could see that I definitely would say I can't pick Lehigh Valley. And unfortunately, they're playing Hartford, one of the 3 teams I would not pick against it. So I say Hartford. I say Hartford in 6.
Yeah. So the reason I picked this is Mike kind of alluded to it a little bit. Team that was scrapping to get into the playoffs, and another team that was set, probably 3-4 weeks ago, knew they were going to be in the playoffs and
cruise control and the snooze button.
Yeah, could possibly be the number 1 seed, though the Americans went on quite the run to end their already amazing season. So they got the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, but the Wolfpack are not a joke, and Big Beefy runs a good team over there with the Wolfpack. He's one of the returning players. They made a move for Heinekens on D earlier this year. They have Hazy Hype. General Patton ended up on VHigh's top 10 defensive scoring leaders as the leading defensive goal scorer this year with 16 goals. He had that 6-goal game in the final week where he had 8 goals in the final week, which is by far the highest goal production out of a defenseman. And honestly, if you look at this matchup on paper, the Phantoms were only 500. They were 39, 39, and 4. And the Wolfpack were 62, 18, and 2, only 2 overtime losses, which is that's pretty good to they didn't get very many points in overtime from losses, but they didn't need them because they won a ton of games. And my feeling on this is really just a feeling. The way Lehigh Valley played their final 2 weeks of the season to kind of switch back and forth with us and the Bruins and the Penguins and kind of how that all played out, and they ended up getting into the playoffs. And the Sound Tigers, thank you. I couldn't remember the 5th team. They got in, and they've been playing some solid hockey. They've got a defenseman that we were really interested in at the beginning of the season in Golden Dreams, and he is an outstanding kid. Plays really well. Apollo 77, their GM, is an extremely good player, as well as Skilled Python. They've got some players on their roster, and I think that those players can be the reason for 2 games at least to be stolen in this series. And I wouldn't pick the Phantoms to win this series, but I would never be shocked to see any of these teams win the series that they're in. So, Mike, how do you see this one breaking down?
Well, basically about the exact same way. You got, Hartford, who's just powerhouse. And you do have the scrappy Phantoms coming in there who did put together a good finish to the season. They finished hard, they finished strong, but Hartford, they stumbled just a little bit and were losing to some teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to, maybe in week 7, 8-ish, right around there. But they finished strong. Their last 10 games, they were 9-1. That was good for the second best record in the last 10 games in the entire league, second to only the Rochester Americans, who were 9-0-1.
Yep.
So, I think Hartford found their game again. They got right back in stride right when they needed to. We'll see what happens with this break. That could hurt Hartford or it could help them. It could go very much either way there, but you never know. But when it does come to Lehigh Valley, like you said, they have some players over there that I absolutely love. I think Golden Dreams is a great puck-moving defenseman. He's got offensive touch. He knows when to take the puck up the ice. He sees the holes. He sees the passing lanes. He's a very skilled player. A skilled Python is fantastic as well. He's a very good player. We've been playing a lot of games with him recently, and getting to know him pretty well. And he's a great guy and a great player on top of that. And I've played on a couple of teams with Apollo recently as well. And Apollo is a shutdown, solid defenseman who can just shut it down on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, Hartford, they move the puck, they cycle like crazy. Beefy, handles the puck like no other. He's got amazing moves coming out of the corner down deep in the offensive zone. Jones is a great goaltender. Tommy Lee Gamer is a great player. They're just stacked. Lim Park, fantastic player. These guys are stacked top to bottom. Yep. And they're not coming out of the blue this year. They're not hiding around the corner in the shadows. They're right here for everyone to see, and I see them really making some noise come these playoffs, and I see them taking down the Phantoms fairly quickly in 5.
They for sure could. Sibs, I'm not going to let you discuss this yet because we have Baris on here and we want to talk to him about his story so he can get back to his life outside of this show. What's going on, Baris? How you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing all right, buddy.
Doing great. So you posted a story a couple days ago on LG. It had some input from a few guys, I myself included, playoff series predictions, and very well written, I must say. You go into great detail for each series, which is really cool. How was it putting this together, trying to get 4 or 5 people to collaborate and make this happen?
It was a little bit easier than I would have thought. I just went to people who were active all the time. Like, not a lot of people like Gonzo, but he's active, so I gave him a chance to put his input in, because he's gonna put his input in it anyway. J Claus, he got banned. Everyone knows that, past news. But like, he's still active. I still see him playing, and he's pretty informative on the league. I got him. VHigh came and was just like, "Hey, I can do it." I was just like, "I'm not gonna turn down people." So because when I did it earlier, people were like kind of badgering me because I was like, I guess they were saying I'm a little bit biased, but I mean, it's week 9 now, and I kind of know what I'm doing, so I try to diversify it so that it's not just me.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. Plus, for me, it's really cool to see a story like this where it wasn't just, Baris's predictions. Baris's predictions are in here, but he asked VHigh, J Claus, Gonzo, Devil's Pride, who had to take a leave of absence from the league. Getting this many people to kind of get together and go in, for me, it drew me in more because, of course, I knew what I picked, but I wanted to see what everybody else had to say too, and how far off I might have been in thinking who was going to win a series.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting as it was coming into me. Everyone's got something different, but for the most part, a lot of us are very, very similar, which I thought was amusing to me just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, when you came on for our trade deadline show, I don't believe you had officially become media team yet. I can't remember. It was like right around then, but I think it was right after that show that you got your badge. So welcome to the media team, man. This is our first official chance to do it in public.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I mean, it doesn't really, you don't get paid or anything, but it's something
Right.
cool to be acknowledged for, doing something extra.
Well, it's really cool, and the reason I bring that up is because you're doing something kind of different that's really cool, and you posted it on the NHL page, the LGHL page, for a similar to the Players Tribune type story. And what you're basically going to do is have people respond to you in the league. Your first one you released today with Rhino, the LGAHL leading scorer from this season.
Right.
And what got you to come up with this idea for the site? Because I've thought of stuff like this before, but not really in the LG format. I think it's a really unique idea here, and I really like it. How did you come up with this?
I actually came up to it about it because Rhino was always in the shout box, and he's like, Barris, get me something to do. Give me something to do. Like, I want to get interviewed. And I was like, I don't really have anything for you. But I actually stumbled upon it with Player Tribune, just reading it and going through all the NHL. And I was like, oh, look, Leo Komarov's, his Players Tribune thing. And they gave everyone, Crosby, not Crosby, Malkin, Komarov, and a bunch of other guys. They gave them like all these super generic questions, and they gave everyone, a little packet, and I guess they wrote it out. But I don't have the time for people to write it out, so I just said, here, just reply to me.
Yep.
And some of these answers that people are giving me are like so wild, like so out there. Like it's gonna be interesting. Like when I start posting them, like the NHL guys are like on another level of like just insanity. So.
Do you have any goalies that seem to be more weird than the rest of the bunch?
I actually got Buds from Toronto.
Okay.
And like I had to make him redo his because his was just so wild. I was just like, half of this is not English, and like half of this is like too vulgar. I was like, you gotta give me something else.
Well, the reason I like this is because most of us get to know our 17-man roster. The GMs have it a little bit easier to get know people around the league because we have the Skype GM chat, so we can get to know each other there. And then for the few of us that are on media team, if we talk like this, we know. But it unless you're a guy like Rhino or a bunch of the other guys that are in the shout box and go in there looking for games, you might only be playing games with your own team. And what I really like about this is that you're going to get to know people. Maybe not super in depth, but you'll know more about people and kind of get an insight into who they are and not just which video game character they have with pink skate laces and blue gloves. But you write a bunch of stories each week, and I think for you it seems like you put a ton of time into it. How are you enjoying doing all this stuff? Because it seems like you got a new idea every other day.
Yeah, I try to look at I also play Xbox now, so I look at them and they're popping out like stories like 5, 6 like every other day. So I'm just like I look a little bit at what they have, I look at what we have, and like some people give me ideas as well. They're like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do a trade deadline? Why don't you do a special like this? And so in my free time, I try to like just keep up with it as much as possible and just start give people the options to read things if they so care.
That's cool, man. I'll be honest with you, man. My hat's off to you for everything that you've been doing with all these stories. I think you're really taking a hold of it and making it your own. And I think you almost treating it like you do the game, man. You're kind of being competitive with it, which is good because I think it's really spitting some good ideas out. I mean that one you had the prediction for the rest of the season with the songs, that was brilliant,
Yeah.
man. That one was great. I got a kick out of that reading that whole thing, and it kept me interested. I read the entire thing. I thought it was hilarious, and my hat's off to you, man. I'm really liking the stuff, and it's getting better and better and better every week. So, man, great job.
Yeah, the more you do it, for sure. And you wrote a story earlier this year. It was probably in week 3, and it was power rankings for the Eastern Conference. And it was one of your first ones, and you were getting some hate from some people on being biased, like you said, and whatever. And you put something that I thought was amazing as a response. It was a simple little response, and you said, these are my power rankings, and if you don't like them, you can come on here and write them the same as I do. Do them yourself. And you're challenging people like, just because I say it doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but it's what I believe. And if you think there's something different, by all means, post a story. Get people involved. And I thought that was awesome the way you handled it. You didn't get in an argument. You were just like, you can post it just like I did.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the things actually Beefy told me. Is just like, if you keep posting this stuff, like even, I don't know if you guys remember back, like week 5, I think I did one, and Beefy got like all over me. Right, man. But he like PM'd and we took care of it. But he was just like, hey, just don't take anything personally. Just do what you want to do, and if people have a problem with you, they'll just say it, and they can do it themselves if they really care that much.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, and as we all know, people are gonna have a problem with it, even if it's perfect. People will have a problem with it, and you're gonna hear about it. But hey, it's the nature of the beast, man. That's part of being in media, and you just gotta take it with a grain of salt and brush it off.
So what you're saying was it was your fault then, because week 5, Beefy got mad at you, and then week 6 he started messaging us saying he didn't get any love on the show.
Yeah, I guess I passed that one on to you guys.
Glad to have it, because we want to give as many people credit as we can, and
Right.
and I really do appreciate you coming on here, because you're doing a lot. You can tell just by all these stories that you're doing that you're extremely busy. You're preparing your team for the playoffs right now. You were a little bit late because I think you were running games with them, or at least setting them up.
Yeah.
Before we let you get out of here, how are you feeling heading into the playoffs? You guys have the crunch coming up, and it's going to be a tight series. I think all 3 of us had it 7 games. I picked you guys to lose in 7. I think Sibs did too, and Mike picked you guys to upset the crunch and win in 7 games. How are you guys doing? How are you preparing?
Right now we're doing some intra-squad games where after the games everyone just tells everyone, like, honestly, like, no holds barred, like what you did wrong, what you did right. So we actually just had the Acres just play us just before I got on here, and it's becoming really productive. Like, people are just shooting out what ideas, what you could have done better, what you could have missed. We stream and archive like almost all of our games, so I'm just going back and not only watching the crunch games, but watching my own, just doing my due diligence.
There you go, man.
Mike
Film
will
study.
tell you that's important.
Yep.
Film study, my friend. Absolutely. Get all over that, because I think that's huge. It's super important, man. Like stepping outside the box and watching your team play, like after a game, is so huge, man. I was grinding our guys to do that all season, and they started doing it towards the second half of the season. But it's so important to go back and look at those games, because stuff will, it's your classic, in the NHL. They're like, hey, man, we're going to sit you for a game or 2 here, go watch it from the press box. And, that player comes back a different player in the next game because they stepped outside the game and watched it happen. I think that's huge, man. I think you're doing a really good thing there.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Good luck in the playoffs. I look forward to seeing you guys, and I would not be shocked to see you going to round 2 or maybe beyond. You never know who can get hot at the right time, and I think you run a tight ship over there. So good luck to you, man, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm just actually writing up VHigh's questionnaire right now, and I should be posting it in the next 15, 20 minutes.
Hey, don't let me down, Barris. I got you guys, man. You guys got this.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have
a good one, man.
Talk to you
Take
guys
it
later.
easy, man.
Well, there you have it. That was Barris, VibezDigital, if you're looking for him on the site for some reason. He is the, is he the AGM or is he the GM? I can't remember.
I believe he's the
He's
AGM.
AGM. Yeah, he's AGM over there in Binghamton.
They kind of do a duel, they're both,
Right.
kinda
Him and
like we
Sin,
do.
they live on the same street.
Right.
But
Literally.
there you go. And any second we should be getting VibezDigital on here to talk about his story. And I really do think it's cool. You may not always agree with what Barris has to say, but at least he's getting on here and saying it. We need more people involved, and you have the right to say anything you want on this site about the teams and the how they're stacked up against each other. And he gets on here and pours his heart out into these stories. I think it's super cool.
I agree. I think it's amazing what he's doing, and I was being truthful with him with what I said. I think each week they're getting better and better and better. And to his credit, I mean, he was, when his first one came out, a lot of people were bashing it for being a little bit biased, but you know what? That's how he saw it at the time. And I got to give him credit. I mean, the more and more it's gone on, the more and more he's been able to step outside and take a good look at what's going on. And I think he's really starting to hit his stride in writing these stories. And I think it's great. I mean, the league needs more guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sibs, what do you think about maybe not just Barris, but guys in general, putting stuff on this site? I feel like definitely season 2 we've had way more involvement than we had in season 1. We're
positive involvement.
Right,
Positive.
yeah, more positive, absolutely. And after we got off the air, because I forgot to mention this, we have over 2,500 signups now. We're like, the other day we were like 4 shy of hitting 2,600 signups for the PlayStation side and LG, which is incredible. There's what's your opinion on that stuff, Sibs? I know you're involved a lot and you read just about everything that comes across the thread.
Well, I think any involvement's good. I think what's important is that we go with with getting help from guys who are who want to put out a message that is constructive, that can be controversial, fine, but you see a lot of things that wind up in the shout box, and it can be there's a lot of going off in there. But when guys like Baris and Vibes take the time to put together something that has some thought to it, and really something that's obvious that they put some time into and didn't just throw a one-liner out there. I think
Right.
that's what the league needs. That's what we're getting from a lot of these guys now. I think any involvement's good, but I think it's important that we try and make sure that we've got guys who are trying to do something constructive on the site with other players, because let's remember, this is really supposed to be a social environment here, where it doesn't mean that we're always going to be nice to each other, but it also has to be somewhat constructive. And that's why both Barris and Vibes are guys who are more than happy to talk about what's on their mind. They do it in a constructive way, and they back it up with information. And that, to me, is what I want to see. You
Yep.
can absolutely agree or disagree with me, but do it in an intelligent way. And if that happens, then I'm all for it. And I think what these guys have done so far has been great.
Well, I think it's great, and VibezDigital is joining us here. How you doing, man?
What's going on, boys?
He's making some noise over there. I can hear him clickety clacking away.
Can you guys hear me or no?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, man.
You getting feedback from me or no?
Not really.
I'm on my phone.
Just a click every now and again. Are you hitting like the volume button or something?
I'm formulating a master plan. I can't really.
You usually are. So yeah, Vibes and his cucumber have joined us, and
Yeah, that's my trophy. That's what we're playing for. Right?
and
I mean, everyone else might be playing for the Calder, but I'm playing for the giant cucumber. That's real.
You put up a Western Conference preview story the other day, and I actually want to start at one you posted this morning. You posted a story called "For Whom the Bell Tolls,"
Yeah.
and basically it's just a quick little pre-playoff. I don't know how to really explain, but kind of a pump-up story that you said you wanted to do a video for, but we didn't get it.
Actually, Sibs hit it right on the head when he was like, this sounds like this could be a video with a voiceover. That's what I really wanted to do. I mean, a while back I was asking Jay Claus and
For
Rob
videos.
and a few other people to give me some footage, and I wanted to put together a really sick, playoff primer video. But I just didn't quite get the footage, so I figured I'd slap that together, and hopefully everyone enjoyed the read. It was a quick little read, but
Yeah, well, I think what's becoming more evident is that you are skillful in your use of words and
I love words. Yeah, I love work. Yeah.
You're very good at it, and
Yeah.
I,
I like double entendres and things like that. That's probably why I'm a fan of certain hip hop artists, like
right.
so.
Well, I
But
did want to ask you quickly before you get into anything else. Are we getting Vibes the GM or Vibes the media guy?
I don't know. You might get a little split personality tonight. I'll try and reel it in, but we'll see what happens.
Well, your For Whom the Bell Tolls, I thought was kind of moving because it did put me in a place just like Sib said. I kind of got goosebumps thinking about it from the playoff perspective. You hit it right on the head for guys preparing to get in the playoffs and the pressure that might be on them.
That's right. Yeah, it's a different game, and everything is going to be magnified. And, it's basically just a message, not just to my team, but to everyone, because at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I want to win. That's like the biggest thing to me, obviously. I'm actually, I'm a really bad loser. I like to win at things. But I want to pump everyone up because I want to raise the level of play. I want to see everyone engaged completely. I don't want to see a single play go down in these playoffs uncontested.
Yep.
Every shot, every dump, everything through the neutral zone. Everyone keyed in, ready to go, and that's really where I get my inspiration from to write these sorts of things. If you guys notice, I tend to write a little bit more during the playoff time as we're coming up to the playoffs because to me that's essentially what it all comes down to. I've made jokes and stuff about how the season doesn't start till this week and the season doesn't start till that week, and in a right, it's accurate. You know what I mean? Because this is what it's all about. It's all about the playoff, and everything else that happened previously didn't really matter. Unfortunately for you guys never had a season.
Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I think one of the things that I'll say, I just want to say this quickly because I know Mike and Sibs probably have a couple questions, is you were genuinely upset when J Claws got banned because you said you wanted to beat the Hogs at
I
their
want
absolute
the
best.
best, and Jay Claus is like, for all the bullshit that I've given him and stuff like that, he's a phenomenal player. He's a great kid. And even like when all that went down, you guys saw when you guys were in the management lounge. I'm not going to get into it, but he had an issue with someone else, and I came to bat for Jay Claus, even though he's a divisional rival, because I mean, the breed of hockey, the brand of hockey should be, right into this. I mean, yes, it's a video game and everything, but the same rules apply. On the ice, I hate you.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm getting a phone call here. But after that, it all ends, and it's all about sportsmanship after that.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
When I was reading that, and I'm gonna show my age because probably no one who's listening to this will know
All the
what the hell I'm
Metallica
talking
ones,
about.
right? You caught all those?
Yeah, I was as I was reading it, I was hearing the voice of John Facenda, who was for many years the voice of NFL films,
Yes.
and
Right.
I could hear him reading the dialogue as we're watching highlights, as we're hearing the dramatic music, and to me that says you hit the nail on the head about the emotion and what it feels around playoff time. Obviously, we've all been watching hockey for a long time, and
Yeah.
we have our favorite teams, and there is definitely a different feel. There's a different feel when you're watching games that are playoff games, and
Right.
and I don't think it's any different in this league. It may not be to the extent that we get for a team that you're rooting for decades and decades, but there is absolutely a different feel and a different atmosphere come playoff time, and I think it captured that pretty well in that piece.
Yeah, that was pretty much the point, just to get everyone keyed in, ready to go. Like you say, playoff hockey, it's got a totally different feel, it's a totally different brand. I mean, even like, with real hockey with the NHL and stuff, when they get the playoff towels rolling and stuff like that, I would love to see that incorporated into,
Oh man,
NHL. That would be really dope. But,
big time.
it's definitely a great feeling, playoff time. So,
Yeah.
Like you said, it is a completely different beast. Once the playoffs start, it's go time. Everybody is
Yeah.
0-0. Nobody has any losses. I mean, and it's a brand new game. Anything can happen, and people could freak out. The pressure could get to them. They could, freak out and lose games. Teams that you think are going to roll through. I mean, look what happened last year. Stockton, Providence. Teams that
Well, look at us
when
too.
the pressure was on,
Bad,
but then there's other teams, that when the pressure's on, that's when they get good, like Hartford. Nobody saw that coming, but when it was go time last year, they brought it. And I'm expecting that out of a lot of teams this year. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens once these playoffs get going, and I'm pumped. Like you said, man, it's a new season. Right as soon as the playoff starts, it's a season you suffered through the season to get to.
Yep.
That's right. I mean, look at us last year. Last season we shit the bed. You know what I mean? We ran into a Checkers team who, they shut us down defensively. They really tightened up, and we didn't have an answer. That's what's going to happen to Rockford this season. They're not going to really make it very far. They'll probably be out by the second round or something like that. When they face us. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe Grand Rapids could get rid of them. It's a possibility, but we'll
You
see.
never know. You never know, man.
Yeah.
You said you might get rid of them in the second round, but as I read your playoff prediction story, you I mean, kind of tongue in cheek, picked yourself to lose to the Monsters 4-2.
You'd be a good cop, because I think you might have me there. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, that's a possibility. They might have me in this one. I picked Lake Erie because we've had some trouble with them. And again, I guess we're running into a little bit of split personality vibes here on this one. That's going to be my plea anyway. That's what I'm going to plead out to: split personality. I claim insanity. But they're a good team. They're a fast team, and they really do that delayed back end one timer. And it eats certain goaltenders alive. And the last time that we faced them, we had Scrumsy in, who Scrumsy's probably going to kill me for saying this, but he likes to middle sit a little bit, you know what I mean? And it really opens that back foot one timer really opens those middle sitting goaltenders wide open, and it just exposes them. Mm-hmm. So they did a really good job of eating him alive.
Right. Well, when I read your story and I got to the Wolves versus the Monsters, I contributed to Barris's story, and I picked you guys to beat the Monsters, and I was torn. I picked it in 7, and at the beginning of the season, the Monsters were a team that I said to look out for.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pick them to be bounced in the first round, though I do think you guys will win that series. But I think it's going to be one of those series that is, it could go 7 games. You guys could sweep them, they could sweep you, but I see this one being a back and forth kind of fist fight, and the way you guys both play, I think your styles match up fairly well to be a close, tight, competitive series.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be, it's going to be their offense versus our team play is what it's going to come down to. Mm-hmm. They got the hot shots, they got the guys that could, really skate around people, they could really shoot. We play more of a team style game, so it's going to be whether their skill can outdo us is what it's going to come down to.
Right.
And Ryder Vibes picked Lake Erie, but GM Vibes is with his boys all the way, and there's no way in hell I'm going to tell you that we're going to lose that series right now.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with it, is that the writer vibes, you kind of don't want to be biased towards your own team when you're writing something for the league,
Yeah.
But, in another way, the motivational vibes as well, it knows that his teammates are going to read that and be like, what the hell, our GM thinks we're going to lose? Come on, boys. Let's bring it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there could be a little bit of a method to that madness. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Madness, we understand. The method, I have to learn more about what your method is, but I know the madness is there.
At least you guys get the madness. That's what counts.
Yep. And quickly through the rest of your story, you like I said, I love how you use words and kind of play on things, and in your Hogs and Griffins predictions. You brought up some of the greatest teams in real sports of all time: the '72 Dolphins, the '72-10 Chicago Bulls, '73-9 Golden State Warriors, and then that's kind of, you're right. That's kind of how Rockford was this season, though
Yeah.
they did lose their leading scorer. But you called them the Frigid Pigs, and I love that because you used a couple of different descriptions of other teams too. I really like how you played the words, but you picked Rockford to win this series against the Griffins that are below 500. Nobody's given them a chance. 4-0. How do you really feel about this series?
Well, pretty much like I said, I think Rockford rolls right over them. But stranger things have happened. You look at Hartford last season, and they ran all the way through. It could happen. Like I said, I've been wrong once or twice in my life. You know what I mean? Anybody could beat anybody. That's pretty much why we play. At the end of the day, you can't just give the trophy to somebody.
Yep.
Everyone seems to be giving it to Rockford and Rochester. That seems to be the common thing here. But you really can't do that. But with that series, yeah, I do think that Rockford's going to roll right over them. They're just too good. I mean, you look down the chart, you look at Blues and you look at Kraz and you look at Rhino and you look at Chiz, and the names just keep coming and coming and coming until you run out of breath.
Yep.
It's just it's an awesome team. They are a force, and anyone who denies that is full of shit, for lack of a better words.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think about the Rampage? Because you made a point about Mooner, and
Yeah.
how far do you think goaltending can get you in the playoffs? Not that that's all they have, because it's not, but he is the best in the league or close to it.
Yeah, with most goaltenders, not very far. I've often said that the way you build a team is, in real hockey in the NHL, they tell you from your goaltender out. In our league, it's a little different. It's really from your defense out, and then you sort of sidestep to the goalie. You want a formidable goaltender, but it really comes down to your D, except a select few. And Mooner is one of those select few. If I had a choice, any team, any player in the league, and I'm selecting a goaltender, my goalie's Mooner every single time. He's one of the two best goaltenders in all of LG from how I see it. The second being No Chance in Winnipeg for the NHL, who ironically they were both actually on my VG team not that long ago, so we had to get rid of No Chance. But yeah, those are the two best goaltenders, and Mooner can absolutely steal a game for you. It's very rare that a goaltender can, but I mean, I've just seen some of the saves this guy makes. It's like, how the hell did he do it? It's just the controls shouldn't act like that, but for some reason he gets it done. And,
They don't for me.
yeah, no, not me neither. I was actually considering sending my controller back because I'm not sure that it's me. It might be the controller.
He makes his goalie make like straight up realistic goalie moves.
Yeah.
Like straight up.
Yep. And he's not a middle sitter.
No, at all. Not at all. He plays the game, and there's times where he's really put out of position, but somehow, some way, he gets over there and he makes the save. It's what it is. Actually, I heard Moran saying it the other day. Is that he tracks the puck really well.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to be able to get over there, your puck tracking skills have to be excellent, and his are. He sees the play before it happens. You see the play a split second before it happens, and that's what separates him from everybody else.
I agree, and Mike's talked about him all year. He's last year's number one goaltender in the AHL, and I would pick him as number one this season too. Though San Jose for the Americans had an outstanding season, and there's a couple others like Jones from the Wolfpack and guys like that are really good.
Oh yeah,
I go back to Mooner.
I mean, even we got two of them, and we got Rumsey, and then we got Nazi. Well, now it's Polgs, but. Two very good goaltenders. There's a lot of them out there, but Mooner to me is a notch above the rest.
Yeah, he's on a different level. For sure.
Now the goals versus the Barracuda, I believe I picked the Barracuda to upset the goals in this series, which is quite a leap, to say the least, because, like you said, starting with defense, San Diego's got the best defense in the AHL right now from front to back. And but I picked them in 7. You've got the goals taking them down, taking the CUDA down 4-1. This could be a possible opponent for you later in the playoffs. How do you feel about these two teams?
The Barracuda, they're tricky. They got what's his face, Ducks fan over there, Waterloo.
Yeah, he's a solid player.
He's a really sneaky player, and he's the type of guy that can literally beat you by himself. When I say by yourself, he has a really great way of sneaking in past the defense and sort of just getting himself open, and next thing you know, he's on top of your goalie. So he's a game changer. I went with San Diego because I picked them early on in the season. We got a good look at them, and they whooped us 11-1. I still lose sleep over it, honestly. They destroyed us, and just seeing the way that team can operate, I had them picked as the best team in the West at one point. So
I did too.
Yeah, so I went with them. Not to say the Barracuda. That's a series where any of the series really can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
I just the one that I really don't think is the Rockford series. I just think they steamroll the Griffins. But hopefully the Griffins don't take any offense to that. I apologize if you guys do. Well, whatever. Actually, I don't care if you take offense. But,
it's another one of those classic 1v4s. It's just they're not sitting in a good ship right now.
David versus Goliath.
I mean, honestly, it would have been the same as the Hershey Bears making the playoffs and facing the Wolfpack. I believe in our team 100%, but in all reality, the Wolfpack would have been a super tough challenge that we may not have been able to get by.
Well, you guys came on at the end, and you guys almost beat us one game. So
I still have nightmares about that one.
Yeah,
let's not talk about it.
Well, you're a solid team. You had good management, so that's what carries you through sometimes. So.
Well, thanks,
appreciate
man.
that, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to let you go here. Thank you for coming on. You keep doing what you're doing here, especially through the playoffs with the threads that you post and everything. Everyone enjoys reading them, whether they love you, hate you, don't want to hear what you have to say. They can't help but read it anyway. So keep throwing them up there. We'll keep giving you shout-outs for it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy man.
I appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good night.
All right, Bobs. Good luck moving forward, man.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye, buddy.
Bye. Well, that was VibezDigital, your GM of the Chicago Wolves, and that was also VibezDigital, the should have been a media team member.
The unofficial Western Conference media team member.
Yeah, exactly. And there you have it. He does have a way with words, that's for sure.
Well, I think we'd better jump back on track here and get through these bad boys. Where were we? The Sibs on the Phantoms and the Wolfpack. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Sibs, what do you got, my friend? Did you forget what we were talking about?
Yeah. We got your prediction.
Like I said before, this is well past my bedtime already.
So, right.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm thinking too. Just because the schedule got kind of messed up here, what I think we should do is finish out the Phantoms and the Wolfpack, do the Portland Pirates and Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins series,
Right.
and then on Saturday we can cover the Western Conference with our predictions and all that stuff and get that done. So go ahead with the Phantoms and the Wolfpack here.
Well, like you guys were talking about earlier, there's a bunch of talent on the Phantoms team, and you mentioned Golden Dreams in what you guys were discussing. And again, we played a lot with him before Season 2. I like his game. I like his attitude. He's easy to talk to, and he's just a good team player, I think. And they really got a good play in him, and a good defenseman who wound up with 27 points when the season was over. And again, just plenty of good play from a lot of different guys, lots of bean pots. Charbin, obviously, we know him, solid player, skilled Python. It's just a ton of guys on this team who are great players. And again, like I said, any other team except for maybe Hartford and Rockford and maybe one other who would be a big problem for these guys. And unfortunately, they're going to play. They're going to wind up taking on Hartford, and I think that's going to be too much. I love everybody on this Hartford team, and Jones is coming into the playoffs hot and has been playing tremendously well. He hasn't been on as big of a run as San Jose's been on because Jones just came up a few weeks back, but he's been really solid in net for them, and with Big Lammers as well on that team, solid goaltending all through it. So. I just think Hartford just has way too much, and I see this probably as a. I'm gonna give the Phantoms some love and say that they're gonna go out in 6 games instead of 5.
Yeah, that's what I picked, and it's really not a slight at the Wolfpack at all. And I think what it really is, honestly, even though you get the top versus the bottom of the playoff pool matchups in the first round series seem to be the most difficult to win. Getting your playoffs started seems to be the toughest thing to do, and then you get on a roll, and kind of each series seems to get a little bit easier till you get to the cup. And by easy, I don't mean easy, but it's just like in the season, it's tough to get that first goal. It's tough to get that first win. It's whatever it may be. I think that the Wolfpack may take a couple games to get going here. But ultimately, I think they don't have any trouble finishing out the series. Kind of like Philly played against the Capitals this year, brought it to 6 games, but never really stood a chance of winning the series. And I think it's kind of going to go like that. But another thing here with the Wolfpack is that Beefy brought up Jones a couple weeks ago, and I'm hearing from around the league, a lot of people's opinions that, this guy's right up there with Mooner, San Jose, those guys, that he is that good. And I don't believe we faced him at the end of the season. I can't remember. We did face him? Okay, I couldn't remember if that was him or not. All I know is we got shut out, whoever it was. But, yeah, outstanding. I was going to say if it's not him, their backup goalie's the exact same thing. But they're going to be a tough out in this playoffs. And, I'm like Vibes said with people picking Rochester and Rockford, I might be picking Rochester to win the whole thing. I haven't totally decided yet, but they might not make it past the Wolfpack either. It's a tough team. But let's go ahead and move on here to the Portland Pirates and the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Now, the Pirates are a team that started extremely hot, got up there in second, and then kind of, I don't know if they kind of started to coast a little bit or something, but their play fell off a little bit in the mid-late part of the season, and then they kind of picked it up again in the final week and a half. They went in as the second finishing team in our division, so it's not like they fell that far. They still had over 100 points or something like that. But this series, I think, for me, is going to be. Let me pull it back. The 7-game. I have the Pirates going in 7 games in this series. This one's going to be tight. Wilkes-Barre Scranton, another team fighting for their playoff life the last couple weeks of the season, squeaked in, played some tough games, and they're kind of getting things together here as they're going. But Pirates ultimately, I'm picking to be a little bit too much in the series at 7 games. Mike, how are you going to see this one play out?
Well, like we had talked about, I think this is another one of those series where, you have a team that's just very good across the boards, and in the Pirates, and another team who was battling for their playoff lives for basically the entire season, kind of just in flux, always up and down, up and down, up and down, and I think the consistency of the Pirates is going to finally, win over in this series. I think it's going to take them a little bit, but I see the Portland Pirates winning this one in 6 games. Sibs?
I would agree with the Pirates winning this one. I think it's going to take 7 games. I think it might be one of the better matchups I think we're seeing, at least on the East side. Just a lot of good players on both teams. Not really too many dominant players who are going to, who don't have an answer for them. But I think just a lot of good steady players on both sides, good goaltending on both ways. Um, I think the Pirates have been a solid team all year, and have some guys who have been playing well right to the end. I mean, I like the Pens. I like some of their defense. I'm a big Ultimate Aquaman fan, and I just don't know if he can make enough of a difference on defense to help WBS take a game or two where they shouldn't have. So if they could shut down the number one line on the Pirates and steal a game, maybe 2 from them, they have a chance to win this one. But I still think the Pirates take this in 7.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we see here, outside of probably your couple of top teams that we think might, I'm saying might, coast through their series, but may not because it's the playoffs. I think we're going to have probably 5 or 6 extremely well contested series here. Even the Wolves, who could be a favorite here for the cup. I mean, Vibes runs a tight ship over there. They've got a great group of guys over there. They've got 2 of the top scorers in the league. They have the assist leader for the league in their AGM JLM. But like I said with Lake Erie, that team could bring them down. Same thing you're seeing with the Pirates and the Penguins. The Pirates were no question to make the playoffs. They finished 49-30-3. They've got a solid team. You didn't really hear people talking about them much as a favorite, so to speak, but they were never in question to be in the playoffs. I think they kind of got hidden by how well the Wolfpack finished the season and finished 25 points behind them. But I really think that this team is solid, which is why I think they're going to win the series. But the Penguins, man, they've been fighting, and they've been fighting for the last 3 or 4 weeks, just constantly playing game after game in their division, needing to win it to hold their spot in the playoffs. And ultimately, last week they were able to pull it out. So, I think with the Pirates, you got convicted 238, who we've talked about on this show many times. He's constantly in the power rankings. He's solid. You got Salucci, who was mentioned several times for having outstanding weeks. I look at their lineup and I don't see 17 league leading scorers or 2, I guess 15 league leading scorers and 2 of the best goalies in the league, but I don't see a slouch here whatsoever for the Pirates or the Penguins. And Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I'll tell you right now, Luigi plays base. Sibs, I've heard you mention him
Right.
countless times. Ultimate Aquaman, they've got it together right now, and I think they're kind of rolling, and we could get a solid 7-game series. And if it gets to 7, who the hell knows which way the puck's going to bounce?
Absolutely. If it gets to 7 games, then who knows who's going to win this series?
Flip a coin.
Right. Absolutely. I had the pleasure of getting an inside look at the Portland Pirates over the weekend, as I played several games with their GM and AGM Syrup 15, and Deer Hunter was in a few of those games as well, and some draft games that we had played, I believe. But great guys, extremely good players, smart players. I think like you said, they've been kind of flying under the radar all season, but they got guys on their team. I mean, Bone Crusher, the guy's 13-1. They have some sneaky, solid players. Syrup 15, Bone Crusher, Deer Hunter, all these guys.
Mr. Sticky.
Mr. Sticky. I think that these guys are going to they're going to make some noise in these playoffs. Mark my words. They're going to turn some heads. But it may come down to goaltending in the end. But on the other hand, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, they got a good group over there, and like you said, they've been playing playoff hockey since about week 4. So they've been clutching and grinding all season long to stay in their spot in the Eastern Atlantic, and they're not going to go down without a fight. Guapo is a hell of a defenseman over there for them. IZ Clutch is a great winger. He's coming in at just about almost 3 points a game. RP 199 is coming in at 2 points a game. Killhouse is at 3 points a game. He's killing it for them.
Pun intended.
Yeah, seriously. This is going to be a good series, and I may even be inclined to say that this one is going to go 7 games, but I am going to stick with my original prediction in this one, and I'm going to say the Pirates are going to bring this one home in 6, although, like I said, I could see this one very easily going 7 games in the end. Sibs?
Yeah, I think I still stick with the Pirates winning in 7. Again, a lot of guys on this team who've played well all season long, and their goaltender Alex Claro, 1995, as I think Mike mentioned, 24-9, played well this year. So, again, one of the closer series that we're going to see this playoff season, at least for the first round.
Right.
It's going to get interesting, man, guys. Once we get through this first round, it is going to get interesting.
Once we get to this first round.
Absolutely. You know me. I'm always looking down the road. This first round is going to be amazing, but there's going to be some matchups that are just kind of I don't know. We'll see. But once we trim the fat from this group of teams that are in the playoffs right now, and we get to those quarterfinals, I think you're going to see some of the best hockey around. Between any leagues, whether it's NHL, CHL, or AHL right here in the AHL, once we trim the fat of this first round, looking down the road a little ways, there's going to be some super interesting matchups to watch, and I'm pumped to get this going, and, it's going to be a great time here.
I agree. 100%. I wish we were playing, though I guess from this standpoint, it's a blessing in disguise that now we can focus on covering the playoffs for everybody. We're going to be, on Tuesday nights talking. We're going to be on the air during games, and we're going to be watching these games as long as everybody gets them posted to the site so we can watch them, and discussing what we're seeing, how these are playing out, and we're going to know what's happened in the first couple of games of the series by Tuesday night, and could possibly see some series wrapping up, could see some series hit a turning point, could see a lot of things. And I guess, I want to read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Vibes for everybody to hear who hasn't read it. It'll only take a minute to read, but I think it's good enough that we can read it on the air here, and for everybody, I think this is going to kind of get you, we got a week off here. I think it's going to get you ready for the playoffs for sure. So, for Whom the Bell Tolls, this is by VibezDigital. In life, there are physical laws of the universe which bind us all. Complex mathematical equations which dictate to us exactly how the cookie is supposed to crumble. gravity, force, acceleration. All three of the key ingredients to our physical world that limit, propel, and stabilize us. Confines to our reality that attempt to place us in the box of life and tell us what we can do, won't do, or should not be able to do. But soon we realize something. We realize that the laws of the universe are merely a suggestion. They are meant to be pushed to the limit, and once we hit that limit, we look for the way that will allow us to push past this limit, making the limit a victim of its own suggestions by rendering it the past. Confucius once said, "He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right." So there comes a time when we must decide. We must decide that if anyone is going to tell you no, it's yourself. Not him or her or them or anyone can tell you no but you. And this decision must be made in the blink of an eye, because 1 second too early, 1 inch too late, and the moment of truth has passed you by. And it's in this moment we learn the truest law of life, the law that tells us that sometimes the other laws don't apply to everyone and certainly not you. It's in this moment of absolute clarity that we decide who insists on mortality and for whom the bell tolls. So as the clock ticks down, the days go by, the intensity mounts, the anticipation of greatness envelops, and we set our eyes on the one thing and one thing only. But don't you dare blink, because in that moment your bell may ring as you fade to black. Welcome to the playoffs. And I think that's just incredible. That gets me ready to cover these playoffs. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's awesome.
I think it's pretty sweet. Vibes has a really interesting way of looking at the world. And he comes up with interesting things once playoff time comes around, and it's hey, more power to him. I think that's it's very creative in the way he did it. And my hat's off to him. I just do want to say to everybody out there, as VHigh mentioned earlier, our show did run a little late today, but don't worry. We still got a week to go until the playoffs. Well, we got 5 days, 6 days here. So don't worry. We're going to get to the Western Conference. Yep. We're going to be able to spend a little bit more time in depth on the Western Conference come Saturday, but I guess that'll give you all a reason to tune in Saturday.
And on Saturday, I will get back to the same poll question that I put up tonight, as it involves both conferences, on who you think will win the Cup. Right now, we have a tie for the team that people think is going to win the Cup. We have 3 votes each for the Wolfpack and the Americans. Two for other, 2 for the Wolves, and 1 for the Ice Hogs, Rampage, and Lake Erie Monsters. Go vote on that. We will get back to that on Saturday for sure. And one of the things that we've discussed on this show is the ability to get a team going with 3 lines, forward and defense, and having 2 solid goaltenders. You're going to see some line matchups being made for Game 1, seeing teams that are going to be hosting and, trying to gain an advantage early in the series, but maybe not starting their first line because they think they can steal. We're going to talk about all this on Saturday. It's going to be intense. It's going to be super fun. Thank you all for listening on every night that you listen, not just tonight, but especially tonight because it's a weeknight. And thank you, Mike and Sibs, for taking time out of your normal nightly ritual for work to come on here and shoot the shit with me about this stuff. And we'll get back to all this. But again, we want to thank everybody who comes on and listens to us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Vibes and Barris for making time to come on here tonight and talk to us. That was great. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. We will talk to you all Saturday.
Yep. See you Saturday night.